Wrestle MagicPod, official sponsors of British Empire Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Wrestle Magic Pod production. Once again, I am running for the mountains with co-host Sean. And we are going to talk WrestleManias 10 through 13. We're going to talk the highs, the lows, and the downright disgusting. But before we get started, I want to start out with a couple of shout-outs, and then I'm going to turn things over to the lovely Sean Bush. First of all, by the time you're listening to this, everybody knows that the New York Knicks have won the NBA championship for the first time since, I believe, 1973. Congratulations to everybody in the Knicks organization. I've been wanting to see this since 1994 with the epic battles with Houston, Olajuwon versus Ewing, the repeats of going back, trying everything, the rebuild after rebuild, Carmelo and Amari, Kristaps Porzingis, everything that they tried, they finally did it. Congratulations to that organization. And to see that trophy hoisted up in New York was truly magical for me. It was Wrestle Magic, but it was real NBA magic. Congratulations. However, my congratulations do not stop there, because the original co-host on the show, when I very first started Wrestle Magic back on a different channel for a different organization, was a man named Rocky T. He goes by Rocky T. Silver Fox. He gets two shout-outs on this show today for very important congratulations. One, Rocky, you and your lovely woman, Kim, have graduated college. Congratulations. Two, congratulations on your upcoming baby. Now, with that being said, I want to throw a couple more shout-outs to our co-hosts out there in the trenches, doing their own things, overseas, whatever. We've got the negotiator out there in King Scully, and, of course, the field general, Mr. Maverick Rose, and the unsung hero that is only on seldomly down in Memphis, and that's a good old Memphis Mark. Now, with that being said, there's also one more person I want to say hello, and that's our producer, Jimmy Street, who helps us out with everything and makes sure that these shows sound amazing and look amazing. Thank you, and thank you, everybody, for everything we do. Now, with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Sean Bush so we can get this show on the road.
Get this show on the road, indeed. And you said what the good, the bad, and the downright disgusting. I think it might start getting into that category a little bit.
Well, my name is Gross, so
yes, I thought that was like big, right? Grossa.
Grossa, yeah.
But we're kicking it off this episode with WrestleMania N, or maybe the first WrestleMania X, if you want to put it that way. Live from Madison Square Garden, March 20th, 1994. The world's greatest arena once again. What was the WrestleMania 2 was the first portion of that was in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, because I believe that was a 3-portion venue. I know Chicago was one of them, I believe. So
yeah, MSG,
Chicago, and I can't remember.
Rosemont Horizon, I think, in Chicago, and then the Forum. Was it the Forum or the LA Sports Arena?
It was definitely a West Coast feed. That's all I can really. I mean, it was actually the first WrestleMania that I got to watch, even though I didn't get to watch it live, really. But we won't get into that. I digress. Lead us into this great card, my friend.
This amazing card. Let me put it this way. I think the first real, the best probably opening match that we've had. There was a dark match, but we weren't worried about that. Even though I do love us some Tom Pritchard and Jimmy Del Rey, Heavenly Bodies defeating the Bushwhackers. But we're going to start with a classic that was a classic until it got one-upped a few years later, I believe. Owen Hart defeating Bret Hart in a singles match that went 20 minutes. And it's the Hart brothers. We could watch this for 120 minutes, I think, and it would have been fine.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and this is what I'm going to say about this. And you can correct me or say anything that you want. The fact that Owen Hart never got to be a champion is blasphemy. World champion, that is. This match proved that he was on that level. And I really think that if they continued the storyline in a better direction and not push Bret towards other opponents the way they did going into the future, that this could have been paving the way for Owen I think this really was the way that they were going to pave the way for Owen to become a world champion. If he could defeat Brett, he could do anything.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. This was I guess right after he got away from the original tag team he was with Coco Beware. Yeah,
We need some high energy.
high energy, exactly. I mean, Owen Hart is, his everything that surrounds the tragedy that happened at the end of his life, 6 years later, 7 years later, whatever it was, 8 years later, nine, something like that, several years later, is overshadowing really what a great wrestler he really was. And, in a lot of ways, eclipsing or at the very least equaling his brother. And I think in some ways he might have actually, if you, like you were saying, had the chance to hold the World Heavyweight Championship, would have been a remarkable champion. Sometimes that doesn't work out, but he was fantastic. And this match is a great example of that. And a great opening match for what is a decent card.
I'll give you a decent card. Well, and I will say I do believe that this was the match of Owen's career.
Mm-hmm.
There was no other pinnacle match or anything higher than this.
They did a cage match, I believe, as well. The big blue cage that was also either part of this or a little bit later on down the road. Brett and Owen, that was okay, but it didn't quite have the same kind of feeling that this one did. A lot of times these matches where they build up as a big blood feud, literally in this case, and they come out and start locking up, it doesn't make sense. You really want to beat the hell out of this guy. What's the first thing you do is you go into a collar and elbow, But this was a great match. Like you said, maybe one of his best.
Agreed. So, me personally, like I said, I think this is the match of Owen's career, but I also think that there was a lot bigger plans, and they just fell through the cracks because of politics, because of, we'll get into that later. So, this is definitely better than a Saturday night's main event or a sub pay-per-view and in your house or anything like that. This was definitely a WrestleMania match.
I don't know that it might have been considered a main event just based on the buildup and all that. That might not have really been there. But for a WrestleMania match, it is worthy. Unlike the next match, Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna Vachon defeating Doink and Dink in 6 minutes. Mixed tag team matches are always a little dicey. Especially in WWE, I've seen plenty in different promotions and indie organizations that just, WWE's always had a little bit of trouble with female wrestlers, and that sucks because I think there are great female wrestlers and great workers, female workers out there that really don't get it. And here Luna Vachon is, if I remember correctly, really selling to try to, look like a pretty big fool against Dink, who, no shade against him as a little person wrestler, but I feel bad for Luna in this one. Let's put it that way.
I would have put this as an opening match on a B show version of a Saturday night's main event. I hate to say it. This had no place, just like no place. I get that back in the day, let's get as many wrestlers, many superstars as possible, pal, so they get a big payday. You could just pay them.
But yes,
that's what a salary is. So, okay. So, yeah, I mean, we can definitely move past this match. And, folks, if you have some Clorox, you could just,
After this is Randy Savage defeating Crush in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Evil Crush, who, frankly, was my favorite Crush. I know a lot of people really like the Kona Crush bra, Crush, but I liked who he was trying to be Mr. Bad Guy. And it kind of an interesting end. This was the one where Savage was tied up by his feet, by his ankles at the end, and raised up in the back, out in the what do you call it, concourse of the building, I believe. So it's nowhere near Savage's best, but Falls Count Anywhere matches, again, like mixed tag team matches, are a mixed bag. So, I don't know.
I didn't really have much love for this match. Now, this was not my very favorite version of Crush. I liked him when he reverted back to being Brian Clark,
Yeah.
or excuse me, Brian Adams, when he was part of Chronic. That was my favorite version of him. At this point, it's like just ditch the face paint. He needed a major overhaul for this character to work, I think. Kona Crush didn't work for me. I'm not out there, I'm not due out in the water in 5, man.
It's a downside better than him versus Doink last year.
Thank you.
But it is Savage and Doink, no shade Matt Bourne, but, that's quite a step.
True. I really thought that they were going to try to put Crush over on this one, just because of the build and the fact that Savage is doing part-time commentary at this point. So I figured, just going to kind of sweep him away. But that's part of a storyline for.
And they kind of did too. For a minute they had him, cinched up in the back part of the arena.
Yeah, they had him cinched up in the back of the arena, and what did it really do for the casual fan? Nothing, because it just fell through the cracks.
Yeah. Coming up next, Alundra Blaze defeating Leilani Kai for the women's championship in 3 minutes 20 seconds. Another example, like I said earlier, of WWF women's matches, just especially during this time, it almost was like they wanted to make something work, and they had some good talent in places, but they just didn't know how to do it, I think, most of the time. And maybe a lot of organizations in the United States didn't, especially compared to Japan, for sure.
Leilani Kai, that name sounds familiar. I think she was on a show. I can't remember who hosted that. But as far as Alundra Blaze goes, Medusa, I remember way better as Medusa. I think the first time I saw her was, I want to say, the Dying Days AWA. And then, of course, she had her WCW run, part of what was Dangerous Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And incredibly talented woman. Leilani Kai, of course, years ahead of her time.
Yeah.
And I really think that these two could have put on an early women's version of a wrestling clinic. Give them 11, 12 minutes. Let them do what they do best. Medusa, Alundra being the cheater, but of course she was the babyface because she's American.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't really.
She was a great babyface.
Yeah,
she was a great face.
Looking back, I really don't think there was a face or a heel. I think it was just choose. Leilani's here for the minute.
Yeah.
So enjoy the minute, the 3 minutes. So this could have went a lot further, like you said. If you didn't want to put it on a WrestleMania, then this could have headlined a Saturday night's main event. But back then, it was always a male. It always had to be male dominated. So I really think that this could have been a lot more. I think that this could have set the stage for the women's revolution years to come.
Yeah, a decent little match, just too short.
Yes,
and WWF doesn't, at this time especially, did not really know how to go forward with that. So only 3 minutes, 20 seconds for that, but we get 7 minutes and 41 seconds in a tag team title match between Men on a Mission. Who remembers these guys? Mabel and Mo, with Oscar, defeating the Quebecers, Jacques and Pierre, PCO, who, let's, talk about a guy who really went on to have a really pretty good, sort of second career, if you will, at some point.
Yes.
I mean, he was still wrestling as of what, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that.
I believe he's doing a show for Scott D'Amore's Maple Leaf Pro
this year,
a week or two. Yes.
There you go. See, there you go. I mean, and he had a great look later on down the road. I always love that with the eye patch and everything.
Well, I loved now that he's PCO and he's reinvented himself and he has the line going through, because if people don't know, he has only one eye. He really only has one eye. So the other one's a glass eye. So we're talking about a guy whose depth perception is way off and he still performs at a high level. Now, however, this match should have been billed to Yawner and Yonkers. Okay, so you have Men on a Mission, Mom, versus the Quebecers. What's your gimmick? We're from Quebec. I get it. You were a draw up there. You're not a draw in the United States. Sorry, folks. I'm just telling it the way it is. At least that's the way I felt. Okay, that's my editorial opinion.
They weren't. The Rougeaus had a bit more, I think, going for them in the WWF a little while prior to this.
Yeah, I just don't feel that this was WrestleMania worthy. This was back before Raw when it was prime time. This could have been your main event.
And it was the worst ending that you can do on a WrestleMania, the count out. A count out finish in a championship match. I mean,
I don't know if it was to cool down the crowd, perhaps.
But cooling me down.
Yeah, I never got heated.
And even speaking of that, you're cooling down for something interesting because we're coming in with the fourth to last match on the card, right? Basically, smack dab in the middle is the WWF Championship match between Yokozuna and Lex Luger. And again, like the previous match in the title, in the tag team championship with a count out, this match ends with Mr. Perfect as a special guest referee, by the way, Kurt Hennig, in a disqualification. The ultimate, and everybody knows probably what I'm going to say here, who knows these, who has background with this, the ultimate stop start with a guy like Lex Luger, who is definitely one of those guys that you could see a lot more potential with than what he actually generated in his career. But I don't know what the real argument was to not pull the trigger on the guy here. I don't get it. It boggles me.
Backstage chatter has always been the fact that he just couldn't connect with the fans because he didn't have the charisma of Hogan. But honestly,
he had something with the Lex Express thing leading up to this. Like it wasn't Hulk Hogan. It wasn't Randy Savage. It wasn't Roddy Piper. He wasn't any of those guys by any stretch. But from what I've seen over the years, going back and looking into, this match and the build up and everything, there was at least something there with the fans and the Lex Express and, Yokozuna's body slamming him on the ship somewhere, the battleship.
Yeah. The Intrepid, wasn't it? The USS Intrepid.
Yes, the USS Intrepid. I mean, it was something, and, they already put it, like you said, there's 3 matches after this. Now, one of them is a all-timer. We'll get to that. But you don't, what ends up happening, this was just a weird whole situation. And the whole thing is even made more weird by the last match on the card, which we will then get to, also involving,
Very, very much agreed, because it is kind of a mini build, a mini story within a story. However, the way they picked up Luger and put him on the shoulders and acted like he just won the world championship, it was just such a false ticker tape parade kind of.
And then you realize that that's not even the end of the show. Like if you see that, you're like, well, that's the end of a great WrestleMania or whatever, or a moment. And it's, nope, we still got a few matches left.
This is another one, folks.
Yeah, 30 seconds, bud.
I was just going to say, this is another one, folks, where it's like, I wouldn't say you have to bleach your eyes or bleach your brain, but you're going to go back and say, this is a world title match. This is the top title. This is the most important thing in the company, and you put it on at this place between these two with this finish. That's not fair to the viewer. So that's why this WrestleMania is not exactly stellar.
I mean, and we're sitting here going through it now, and I guess it doesn't really, you don't really see it until you do. But with last year's WrestleMania 9 in Vegas, these have got to be 2 of the weirdest WrestleManias that were ever produced. I mean, they both involving Yokozuna.
Poor guy couldn't catch a break.
Well, I know.
He could break off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
With several pieces. Anyway. The next match is a total throwaway. Earthquake defeating Atom Bomb. Harvey Whippleman's there doing something. But, I mean, we love Earthquake. I do. Anyway, I'm a big Quake fan. And Atom Bomb had a kind of a cool thing going. But, he was never going anywhere really with it towards the top. So, whatever. 35 seconds.
Throwaway match. Once again, this could have been on any Monday night show, any Saturday night's main event. The thing that I disagree with, I do love Quake, because when they talk about how legitimately scared people were of him in the back, but he had a heart of gold. And I found out the other day I'm currently older than he was when he passed, and that's just really sad. Yeah. And not like I'm super old, but it's.
You're old. You're old, Michael. You're an old man.
Go get me a soda cracker and some lukewarm milk. But what it comes down to is Adam Bomb was new to the company. He was previously playing the Night Stalker in Smoky Mountain. This is the beginning of the Smoky Mountain infusion from Jim Cornette also.
Yeah. We saw Heavenly Bodies at the top in the dark match.
Exactly. So a lot of these people are being infused slowly. So they could have done a lot more, I think, with Adam Bomb. I think they could have made the character more serious, but at this point it was still the tail end of the cartoon era, and we're going to get into a whole new generation soon.
I think it was like the meat of the cartoon era for real, in a lot of ways.
That is a big fat steak, isn't it?
Well, and WWE does that look how long the PG era went on. And, they go through these periods of time that are just very long periods of weird, very questionable things. And then they have the spikes like they did for a couple of years here recently, where they were really hot about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And it's just really fallen off badly.
Yeah, it's cooled off, definitely cooled off. Maybe they're doing hot and cold baths, trying to, but what I will say about this is I want to give some major props to Harvey Whippleman, because if you knew him in the Memphis territory as Downtown Bruno, he was a much better character and a much more serious version of who he is now. Yeah. And another thing I will say about Downtown Bruno, Harvey Whippleman, is, first of all, the name Harvey Whippleman, they gave him the name of Mr. Whippleman, Don't Squeeze the Charmin. Yeah. I mean, they were making Mr. Whipple, yeah. So, and
there was a minor league at minor league baseball games. They would always send around, Jake the Diamond Dog and the contortionist and stuff. And there was the nerd guy named Myron Noodleman that would show up, 2 or 3 times at every minor league park, per season. And that was basically his shtick, was being just this. Who was the one guy? Jameson. He was basically being Jameson. But with the name Myron Noodleman, Harvey Whippleman,
Scotty Goldman?
Yeah.
So what it comes down to is Vince didn't like my people.
That's right.
But anyway, this is what I was going to say, and I think I've mentioned this on other shows, and I've heard this on very famous wrestlers podcasts, that until the death of El Gigante, whatever you want to call him, Giant Gonzalez, when he had retired, went back to Argentina, I believe is where he was from, Whippleman was paying his bills because he was broke.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard this from at least 2 or 3 different famous retired wrestlers in their podcasts. So that's a really good guy. So I'm going to give him some credit there, but he has to polish his name off of that. And that's just really bad. I mean, it's a terrible match. It was a terrible setup. And at this point, Earthquake was getting long in the tooth. Build up Adam Bomb, make the character something a little bit more, and roll with it. But they just couldn't think that way. So, as you were, sir.
All right. Coming in next is the WrestleMania moment of the evening, I believe, probably undisputed. Razor Ramon defeating Shawn Michaels in a ladder match, the first WWF ladder match, I think.
Correct.
Yes, for the undisputed IC title. They both had their own rival belts. It ends with the shot that I think Scott Hall had talked about, paying for his bills and probably other things, other substances for life. That shot of him holding the 2 belts on top of the ladder. I mean, it's an amazing match to watch even back now. It probably was 10, 15 years ahead of its time.
Most definitely, and it gave birth to the ladder matches that we're going to get into when we get into the higher teens of the WrestleManias, especially with the Hardys and the Dudleys and everything like that. But at this point, no one had ever seen a ladder match. Nobody even knew what to really expect. I think people were thinking that you're going to use the ladder as a weapon and just beat people with the ladder. And like Scott Hall was going to pick it up as Razor Ramon and just whack Shawn with it sideways. But yes, that's
to that point. This is a very, when you go back and watch it, there are a lot of kind of ugly moments with the ladder. It doesn't look like they really know quite what to do with it yet. And that makes sense. It's perfect that way.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's one of those situations where okay, should we? This is what I liked about it, is the fast climb wasn't abused yet.
Yeah, well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wasn't abused like it is now.
It's like the video game thing, if you ever play a WWF video game with the ladder match. That's all it is. And just
Then we get to the top and we brawl a little bit, and then I fell. So, but yes, it was definitely between this match and Owen and Brett. Those are the two pinnacles, the upper echelon of the card.
And we'll shortchange that a little bit just because you need to go watch it if you haven't seen it out there. Pause this video, go watch the ladder match. It's incredible. It's incredible, like I said, in the sense that it's probably not one of those matches that people who have grown up on modern wrestling will look at and kind of immediately recognize as such, because it is kind of ugly and imperfect and kind of almost, it doesn't look botchy, but it just looks like they aren't really sure what they're doing yet. And I think that makes it better than what it probably even should have been. It was a great match. And Razor, I always love the shot of Razor walking under the ladder. It's great. I mean, Scott Hall we've talked about this in the past. He was so smart. He had such a good mind for the business in almost every aspect. It was a shame that his demons kind of kept him from really, again, another guy like Owen who never won the world championship.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
So how do we follow up this match, my friend?
With WrestleMania 9 Part 2, I guess. Bret Hart defeating Yokozuna for the championship. Roddy Piper is a special guest referee again. Maybe, I mean, it was better match-wise than the Lex Luger thing, but whether or not it should have worked this way is, I guess, in the eye of the beholder. I'm not the biggest fan of the way it all worked out, but ends up being a decent match. It was just kind of a wet fart of an ending for what had been going on for the previous couple of matches on this WrestleMania card.
I also believe that it paved the way for what was supposed to be the Owen series. I think it would have been better if they really focused on Owen backstage, like putting on his gear and just staring at the monitor and shaking his head and like mouthing to himself, "It should have been me. It should have been me." But also, who did Taker wrestle on this one again?
Nobody.
So this is one that he was off, because I swore he didn't miss a Mania. But I could be wrong. This could have been when he had a crushed face.
Yeah, I think that actually was it.
You've got me intrigued.
Yokozuna, I mean, and again, another way that they did build Yokozuna really well. He ended up with probably a shorter run than he should have had, because he was a talented guy, especially for his size. I mean, he wasn't doing moonsaults or anything like that, like Bam Bam, but I mean, just given, his sheer mass and how big he was, he probably shouldn't have been anywhere near as good as he actually was.
He was definitely a bull in the china shop, but it's like you said, I mean, his athleticism for 600 pounds.
Yeah.
You can't take that away from him. It's sad, because I hate to think of how many wrestlers on this card, they're gone.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, some of them, it's wrestling, so a lot of those guys died very young. I mean, Savage and Crush are gone. Mabel, but I mean, Mabel again was such a huge guy. I don't know what that. I think did Mo not just recently pass away, or am I thinking of maybe one of the other guys in Men on a Mission?
It might have been Mo, but yeah, I remember when
he did. He died in October last year.
When Mabel passed, it's really interesting. I lived in Memphis at the time, and it was probably a week after. There was this really attractive woman who was at the place I was running on Beale Street looking for a host job, and she was talking to our GM at the time, Rob, and it was his ex-wife. And at that point, I'm getting a message from Maverick, and he's saying, "Big Daddy V died." I said, "Yeah, I know. His wife's here right now. This is kind of odd." I don't know how. It's just one of those things where the universe comes together. So I think
there's another guy who had multiple, some of these guys in wrestling just end up having multiple characters that, especially it seems like in WWF, they hold on to some of these. Like, I think Mabel went and did something for a while and then came back as Big Daddy V. Viscera and doing all of that stuff. But he kind of had a consistent job at a place like WWE for a long time, and credit to him for that. I'm sure he made pretty decent money doing so, and he. I before I really knew what Mabel was, I knew Viscera, as a kid because of the ministry and all of that, and we'll be getting to that in later episodes.
Sounds fantastic.
Anyway, moving on, we have WrestleMania 11 coming to you from Hartford, Connecticut, the Hartford Civic Center, on April 2nd, 1995. We are really deep into this new generation, I think, at this point.
Yeah, let's talk about this wonderful new generation, please. So this is a point where Vince is infusing a lot of people from Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He's initially started his secret romance with ECW. He's pulling people from each, more or less. If he gets someone from ECW, he's buying them outright. With Smoky Mountain, he's subcontracting a lot of the talent. So he's paying them WWE or WWF at the time payoffs. However, they look like complete and utter buffoons. And almost everybody that's pulled up from Smoky Mountain is going to be enhancement talent because he ran out of his own enhancement talent. And at this point, they were just dying. They didn't know what to do, and they're throwing every noodle against the wall, hoping one piece of spaghetti is going to stick. So without further ado, Mr. Sean, kick this bad boy off.
WrestleMania 11. Let's start it off with the Allied Powers, Lex Luger and the British Bulldog, who it's lucky that America and the United Kingdom have the same color palette. That's, hey, who could have asked for anything better than that? Defeating the Blue Brothers. Who?
I think...
Who?
What?
I'll be honest with you. I would have totally, when I went back and actually first saw this, and I was like, I would have never guessed they were actually on a WrestleMania, to be honest with you. I was stunned, honestly.
I actually think that they made a second appearance later on down the road as Skull and
as those guys. Well, my generation definitely knows them as that, and I don't remember when I learned that, but that blew my mind too. I was like, those guys?
So for all of you who don't know who the Blue Brothers are, they wrestled Memphis, they wrestled Smoky Mountain, and I think Global also as the Bruise Brothers, Ron and Don Harris. Yeah. They're a bunch of big, jacked up, best way I could put it as the Bruise Brothers, which was their best gimmick, really, is that they kind of dressed a little bit like Bruiser Brody, like furry loincloth, furry boots, but they weren't like all crazy like Bruiser Brody was, but they were brawlers. They had this big brawling gimmick. It worked for them. They weren't exactly ring technicians, and their matches weren't 10s out of 5s, but it worked for them, and it worked for the gimmick. Now they're rechristened. They're given Dutch Mantel as, what was it, Uncle Zeb?
Uncle Zebekiah, yeah.
Yeah, Uncle
Bringing
Zebekiah.
him down to the ring, grabbing him by the ear,
It was.
Which that's my favorite bit about that tag team. Yes. I think was just the gimmick of Zeb dragging him to the ring one ear at a time. Because I was kind of waiting to hear what you had to say about them in some of the older territories and whatnot, because they're definitely not a tag team that I knew much about at all, except for literally the guys later on, the Disciples of Apocalypse, I believe is what they were called.
Disciples of Apocalypse, and then later on they became Standards and Practices in WCW.
Well, that was even, good Lord. But they were, no shade, sorry guys, but they were poor in their WWF run, as the Blue Brothers anyway. They were not good.
I just don't understand the hook of the Blue Brothers. You're a watered down version of the Bruise Brothers,
which is a way better name too.
Yeah, so we're the Blue Brothers. Like,
you're waiting for them to say the Blues Brothers.
Exactly. That's as a fan of the blues music and the Blues Brothers, I'm at a loss here because. See, then you put Ray Traylor with him with the old Boss Man gimmick, and the music fits and everything. But no, the problem was, you think they'd at least wear like all blue. There was no hook.
But it's a different blue. It's BLU, not BLE.
Yes, BLU. That keeps it from being like even More,
It's almost like a redneck thing at some point. It becomes like a backwoodsy kind of vibe more than anything.
so basically, you had the Bulldog and three guys who all had 6 left feet.
Listen, I'm not going to put Lex in that category. I'm sorry. Lex is a little bit.
His charisma had improved, and yeah, I mean he was strong as an ox, but he did have the gimpiest clothesline in history.
He did, but to be fair, he had a metal plate in there, so.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
How is that ever legal?
Ask Iron Mike Sharp.
Yeah. So. I mean, in kayfabe, even it's like your opponent should be sitting there or standing with the commissioner, going, "Hello,
yeah.
What? Why is this legal? Why am I made to fight this guy anyway?" No, that always cracked me up.
So my take on this match is this is another one where they're trying to get everybody involved, just everybody.
Yeah.
And so I feel bad for Luger because he's fallen down the card so far. Davey Boy, I believe, had just returned, maybe from WCW or from Japan. I can't remember which. It's been a long, long time.
I think he was in WCW later because that's where he ended up hurting his back on that trapdoor ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was one point where he was tagging with Sting, and it was, remember, it was them versus the Masters of the Powerbomb. We'll cover that someday in the great cinematic action of a White Castle of Death match. Personally, I prefer Crystal. If you know, you know.
I can't agree with you there. I'm sorry, but.
But anyway, this was basically 4 big jacked up guys, semi-brawling, a little bit of technical from Davey Boy, and it's really not worth watching the match. It's not.
Yeah. Now, next up, a really good, really fun match for the Intercontinental Championship. Razor Ramon with 1, 2, 3 Kid Sean Waltman defeating Jeff Jarrett, who had the Road Dog in his corner. It was by disqualification, so meh. But it went 13 minutes and 32 seconds. These are 2 guys. I mean, you stick these guys in a ring, they're going to put on a pretty good show. Almost kind of a shame that they were the second match of the night for a belt like the IC title on this card that we'll see getting down the list and see what happens with that.
I wholeheartedly agree because what I thought about this match was, first of all, I knew Jeff Jarrett from his days in Memphis, and I didn't like the country music thing. I didn't like that gimmick. Of course, the Road Dog is one of the Armstrong family people. He was picked up from Smoky Mountain, so he was part of that pull-in. I believe that Sean Waltman, as the 1, 2, 3 Kid, was coming off of his global stint as his original gimmick, the Lightning Kid, which was much more serious. So if you gave me the Lightning Kid backing up Scott Hall versus a serious Jeff Jarrett with the Road Dog, a hell of a lot more eyeballs would have been on this match.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot more. That's my opinion. Now, I will also say this is an incredibly serviceable Intercontinental match. Incredibly 100%. Serviceable. Yeah. And I've always saw the Intercontinental belt as the worker's belt. Back then it was, okay, we can't put the world title on you. We're going to see how the people react if you're the under champion. We're going to see if we can prime you for the big time. But in the meantime, this is your reward. You get a little pay bump. You have to carry this belt around. And we want to see what you can do if people are going to back you up. And I really think that if Jarrett wasn't from Memphis, he would have got a bigger push. But we all know Vince McMahon's
Vince is the biggest country music fan of all time, of course. So. Yeah,
and of course Scott Hall stuck in the Razor Ramon thing, so he's still pigeonholed into very much that Scarface gimmick. So that's where I am with that.
To be fair about that, 2 things. That was Scott Hall's idea, I think, because we know Vince McMahon didn't watch Scarface, or if he did, probably didn't remember a thing about it. But also Jarrett, I mean, talk about such an easy guy to hate. I mean, Jarrett gets credit. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we're going to sit here and, cry tears for Jeff Jarrett, his career and all that in a lot of ways. But he was so good at being such a heel, one of these guys that you're just like, get out of here. I want to see everybody beat you. He was so good at that.
He was a heat magnet, and
He was. He was fantastic as a heel.
I had a lot of people who didn't like the Double J character that I've met in my life that say, "Oh, he was talentless and this and that." I'm like, watch him just wrestle,
Oh, I mean, besides the wrestling, they're like
and then
the
watch him pull it in.
straps and the strutting like Jackie Fargo or whatever. But it's like, but that's why he knows that that's the kind of thing that most people are going to watch and go, "Who is this guy? Get him out of here." It's like, yeah,
Kick his ass, Seabass.
Yeah.
You know, that's all you want. So yeah, honestly, like I said, with a tweak in the personas, this could have been way higher up the card and probably would have stole the show.
well, for sure, and even just honestly, in a different place in the card, and I can kind of see, looking at my roster here, where I would move that to. At the very least, one matchup, which is a rather unfortunate match in the lineage of The Undertaker, defeating King Kong Bundy with Ted DiBiase in his corner. Larry Young is the special guest referee, which that's an MLB umpire, for crying out loud. I mean, who thought of that? I mean, Vince, I'm sure, probably, but good Lord.
I'm at a loss for words on this one. First of all, I liked Bundy back in the day when he had the whole five count gimmick, the walking condominium.
Yeah. But this was a horrible match.
This is a Bundy with bad knees, bad back.
And we've talked about it with Taker. It took how many WrestleManias for him to really have some good matches start to get built up? We'll get to them eventually.
Yes, absolutely.
Eventually on this podcast sometime, but it took a while, and this was definitely not one of them. 2 years ago at WrestleMania 9 was a god awful match with Gonzalez. And yeah, just an unfortunate, like you said, I like Bundy as well, but he just was not classic King Kong Bundy in this match in any sense of the word.
I agree. Yeah, this was a stinker, but hey, Undertaker's still on it.
And it doesn't get a whole lot better in the next match, even though we've got Owen Hart and Yokozuna, which over the years, you can say that multiple managers are always kind of pretty iffy, but give me Fuji and Jim Cornette any day of the week. I mean, they're amazing. Defeating the Smoking Guns, Billy Gunn and Bart Gunn, for the tag team championships. Owen and Yoko winning it away from Billy and Bart. But otherwise a pretty bleh match.
There was, they say all sizzle, no steak. They didn't even turn on the range. The stove wasn't even turned on for this one. It was cold. It was you're coming out of a bad Taker match. Yeah. And then you're going into a tag team match that's inconsequential, really. Now, I will say that probably the height of it is the Fuji Cornette connection, because it makes no sense whatsoever. You look at it on paper, you're like, this makes no sense. So Fuji speaks only Japanese, and so Cornette
it makes no sense in the way that like good wrestling does, though, because it makes no sense, but you still kind of love it.
There's a weird soft spot for that tandem manager thing, because it just it's a rib on a rib. It's a hat on a hat.
Exactly. There you go.
It's a hat on a hat. It's Sting under a Sting mask. That's what this is. Okay, folks. That's the best way I can put it. If you don't know what that is, you'll have to go back. Just YouTube Sting in a Sting mask, and it's just like, oh, come on. But what I will say about it is the reason that they did it is because so the reason that they did it is because Fuji, trying to push this monster Yokozuna still, he didn't speak well enough English to help get him over, and Yokozuna speaks perfect English, but he's Samoan and he's trying to play like he's Japanese. So Cornette being there and the heat magnet he is, and having the most poison dipped tongue in managerial history almost, is just perfect. And I think that it just really, it created like a good, I don't want to say Three Stooges, but a Laurel and Hardy or a Marx Brothers kind of like really, really awesome tag team of management.
Yeah. Oh, all right. So after that, we're all watching Fuji and Cornette, so that was at least fun for that moment. We do go to an I Quit match. The worst of it is Roddy Piper as the special guest referee. I believe his words were just, "What do you say?
What do you say? What do you say? Do you quit? Do you quit? Do you quit?"
Over and over and over again. Bret Hart defeating Bob Backlund for in a pretty good match, actually. I mean, Backlund could. I mean, he was another one of the guys we were talking about earlier, an ageless wonder, if you will, in a lot of respects. I mean, was he the Bob Backlund in his heyday? Maybe not, but God damn if he wasn't one of the better wrestlers in general at that time in that company, even at his age. And I loved the whole thing that they did with his character around that time, turning him into that sort of heel persona and what would later then become a world champion over Bret Hart, beating him, which was phenomenal. The promo he did after that, I feel like a god, Backlund was one of the most underrated and underappreciated sort of second runs that anybody's ever had, I think. I think he was fantastic in this time period.
Well, it was a surprise after how many years had he been gone? I think it was 82 or 83, 84 that he just disappeared, and now he's back, and he was still in decent shape. He could still go in the ring. Now, of course, everybody loses a step. You can't defeat Father Time. We all know this. But twisting the character up a notch and just him.
I mean, I think that's the key. His, and I think some guys that manage to do that, PCO, like we talked about earlier, in a lot of ways, you know that you can't quite do what you used to be able to do physically, but you have the wherewithal and you have the wits and the intelligence to be able to make that character adjustment. And it worked for Bob Backlund. The only thing I would say is it just didn't last as long as maybe it could have. But then, maybe it shouldn't have gone any longer than it did. So who knows?
Well, you don't want to NWO it.
Yeah.
We don't want to wear out our welcome and be like, well, it's getting late. Going to bed now. The wife's tired. So I was really surprised to see Backlund back in the WWF at the time. And I was surprised that he could still wrestle. I figured that he was really old at this point. And, but
maybe not so much. I mean, 95, he was born in 49. So what's that? That's 46 years. I mean,
I want to say he was 46 years old.
How old is Punk and how old is Roman Reigns and how old is, all those guys? I mean, so maybe we shouldn't be so shocked, I guess.
No, you do have a good point. And I remember back watching the territories, people like Bockwinkel going to like 60 or something, or almost 60. And Jimmy Valiant just retired. And he's got to be like, he was riding a dinosaur to the ring at one point. Jimmy, if you're listening, I'm a huge fan of the Boogie Woogie Man and Handsome. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But getting back to it, I love Piper. What do you say? You give up? You give up? What do you say? What's going on? You give up? Like every 5 seconds. But when you look at it, really, that's what a ref is supposed to do in an I Quit match. But it's like,
change it up. Change it up a bit. What do you say? Do you quit? Yes or no? Something. I love Piper. We all love Piper. But this was not one of his,
It's a clothesline. What do you say? What do you say? Do you quit? Like, it's a clothesline, man. Let me get up.
I think another show I watched a while back was doing that match, and I think even pointed out a few times that there's a couple of times you hear Bret say no, and you can almost kind of tell that even Bret Hart at that point was just like, no, go away.
Go ahead.
I mean,
so, it is what it is.
So next up. Maybe let's see how you feel about this. Arguably Kevin Nash's best match in his entire career when it comes down to it. Diesel, the champion of the WWF, with Pamela Anderson, by the way, in her corner, defeating Shawn Michaels with Sid in his corner, and Jenny McCarthy too. But okay, I was Sid, Pam Anderson. I was trying to do something there.
I get you there.
I would take Sid any day.
Exactly. What I have to say about this match is, of course, this is another one. Let's cross promote. Let's throw two buxom blondes out there, and all they have to do is kind of mash up that cleavage a little bit and bend over.
Royal Rumble? Shawn won the Rumble. And it was like Pamela Anderson standing in the ring, just like totally not knowing what to do. Like, I guess. Yeah. Smiling and just whatever, and she ended up really disliking Shawn, I think, for real, which big surprise there at this time, right?
Yeah, no joke.
And so ended up in Diesel's corner instead. So, but not a bad little match, especially when you look at the grand scheme of world heavyweight title matches over the years in WrestleManias. It was all right.
Well, this is the beginning of watching Sean the Performer. I mean, of course, he was also Sean the Politician at this point, but Sean the Performer, because Kevin Nash was not carrying this match at all. And, the 6 moves of doom, you got to work around that for I don't know how many minutes. And it's like, okay, how do we make this entertaining? And then how do we draw in our corner people? And how do we tell a story with it? And they did the best they could to tell a story. And so, I'm not ashamed of the match, but I know it's not Sean's best work. And
No.
I mean, Kevin Nash is Kevin Nash.
Yeah,
So,
it wouldn't make my top 10, that's for sure. But it's not bad. It's fine for what it is. So we can put it at maybe a little long at 20 minutes. If we can really go with anything, maybe a bit long because you could have given a little bit more time to move a Razor Ramon Jeff Jarrett match a little bit further down on the card, or give a few more minutes. I was looking just now, the Bret Hart Bob Backlund match only went 9:34, an I Quit match, so maybe a little too long compared to the rest of the card.
agreed. And I also think that, at this point, like I said, it's the beginning of Sean's work ethic phase. And of course, he's going to go on to have his more storied career with Brett and more technical wrestlers and so on and so forth. And we're going to get to that with more manias and such. But this also shows you that, I mean, if he could really carry Kevin Nash through a serviceable match for 20 minutes, that he was really giving it his all. Yeah. So, major kudos. And of course, I would have cut it down to 14 minutes, had more shenanigans, and got a quicker win that way.
And I would have made it the main event, which it wasn't. It was this match. Lawrence Taylor of the New York Giants. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Lawrence Taylor, NFL Hall of Famer, defeating Bam Bam Bigelow with Payday Pat Patterson as the special guest referee in 11:42. You know what? I don't know if it's a hot take, as the kids say. This match is arguably the best, if not one of the best, celebrity matches I think WWF ever did. I'll give Lawrence Taylor a ton of credit.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't one of Lawrence Taylor's cornermen for future Four Horsemen Steve Mongo McMichael?
I believe he was, yes. And then Vince didn't want to pay him, so he went to Ted Turner and Eric Bischoff Woods, so
it's very interesting. I mean, I look back at the match. I was angry at the match, to be honest with you, back then.
It shouldn't have been the main event. I mean, let's just be honest. But
it was a vessel to ruin Bam Bam's career by the Click. Everybody knows that. It's been stated by way too many people because the rumor goes it was supposed to be, I believe, Kevin Nash who was going to lose to Lawrence Taylor. They lobbied to have Bigelow put in there with the payback being that Bigelow would win the world championship off of Nash later on that year. However,
never happened. Yeah, that
got changed. And so for many years after that, anytime Bigelow played a heel and he was wrestling someone, the crowd would chant LT at him. And to his credit, he would act like he was angry, but in many a shoot interview, he's actually said, and I love this, he goes, I was the main event. I got the biggest payday.
Yeah. And you know what? Good for him. And again, we just got done saying it shouldn't have been the main event. It was. I'm happy that Bam Bam got that spot. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. As a match, I still say it probably shouldn't have been. And as a match, like you said, it probably is correct to say that it was a vehicle to really kick Bam Bam in the head. And that sucks too. But to his credit, again, he went out there, he put on a really pretty good match with a non-wrestler. And it was good. I very much remember going back and watching it several years ago for the first time, as an adult, and really kind of watching it as a adult wrestling fan and going, it was actually a really fun little match. That was pretty good. A ton of credit to LT and Bam Bam for this one. I really do.
All I can say about LT is what a man. He was out there shooping.
Now,
with that double entendre, if you know, you know. I will say also the fact that LT has never badmouthed the company, as far as I know. or said anything bad about Bam Bam Bigelow. And this was up to Bam Bam Bigelow and whoever the producers were to put this match together. So they did a great job because, as you said, for a celebrity match, think about the Bad Bunny matches, please. Snoop Dogg with the elbow, please. Okay? I weigh more than Snoop Dogg, and you know how thin I am. So what I will say is that the believability in this match is very strong, but I also love the fact that this match all right, let me rewind and say this the proper way. While it should have killed Bam Bam's career and it did hurt it, it didn't kill his career, and he got a great payday. So I love the fact that this match got him the payday that he always deserved. But since WrestleMania 2, had you ever seen this many celebrities in a WrestleMania?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah.
And Lawrence Taylor looked like the only one that was not completely lost. Like, what? So, and as far as I know, we didn't have Liberace and the Rockettes. We didn't have Pam Anderson and Jenny McCarthy or anybody else jiggling their gel caps in there. What we had was what was supposed to be a very true wrestling match. So, you know what? I'll give my hats off to him. I was just disappointed that Bam Bam had to do the favors. That's all.
Good. All right, moving on. After that, we have WrestleMania 12. X11 Going Hollywood in Anaheim, California, March 31st, 1996, the Arrowhead Pond, which was, I think, brand new at the time, if I remember correct. Or I wasn't there for it, but if research serves, brand new Arrowhead Pond out there. This might be the ultimate one-match WrestleMania of all time, I think.
That's very quite possible. Also, I do believe that this might have been the expansion year for the NHL for the Mighty Ducks. So yeah. I think that's, it was either this or the year prior. I think it might have been under construction the year prior. But anyway, the point is, let's get into the meat and lack of potatoes.
Well, speaking of lack of potatoes, there was a dark match, the Huckster and the Nacho Man ending in a no contest, which, if you know anything about that, if you don't know anything about that, just don't bother, please.
Or you could torture yourself and watch all these reruns of Billionaire Tad's Wrestling War Room, presented by WWF at the time. On Monday Night Raw, and you'll understand what we're talking about. I will say that there was one funny skit in Billionaire Tad's Wrestling War Room is when the guy playing the Nacho Man is trying to snap into a Slim Jim, but he's so old he can't snap it, and he's just like fiddling with it during the whole skit. Anyway, as you were saying, let's forget that dark match.
Let's get into the real card here, which starts ignominiously itself with a six-man match. British Bulldog, Owen Hart. Again, Owen Hart involved in a pretty meh match. And Vader defeating Ahmed Johnson, Jake Roberts, and Yokozuna. If Yokozuna's team had won, he would have received 5 minutes alone with Jim Cornette in the ring, but alas, this was not to be. Even though I'm sure we would have loved to have seen Cornette cowering, for 5 minutes and then, taking a bonsai drop. So, but a pretty stinker of a match for the most part.
Well, we have to see what a caveat is, okay? First of all, Bulldog and Owen, this is prior to them forming a very great... Yeah.
Vader's in there.
But, just saying this is the beginning of them becoming a good tag team together for a while. And I really enjoyed Bulldog and Owen as a tag team.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they grew up together. They're part of the same extended family, so on and so forth. So their chemistry was spot on. And you have two members of legendary teams, and it's great chemistry. It's just absolute great chemistry. It's like me and you. Now, Vader, of course, is Vader, one of the greatest super heavyweights of all time. He and Bam Bam are probably the two top super heavyweights that could do weird athletic things. Now, on the other side of the ring, you have Ahmed Three Left Feet Johnson.
Three left feet and a tongue that might have been a bit too big for his own mouth, unfortunately. I think
exactly.
Tripped up a lot speaking, so I don't want to lay too much on the guy, but He was one of those just because when I was a kid, I thought he looked awesome, and he did. Great look. Looks amazing.
Yes.
Looks like $1 million as a wrestler, but that's about as far as it goes.
He looked like $1 million, but he wrestled off the value meal.
Yeah.
So that's basically what was up with him. Yoko at this point was really battling the weight issues.
And Jake was really battling his own demons.
Jake looked horrible in this match. And I hate to say it because I grew up a Snake fan. And if you watch Classic Snake, he was amazing, especially when he was in better shape. But at this point, he's wearing like a full body suit.
Yeah.
You could see he misses a cue or two. And they said Jake was so psychological. And there's like at least one point where not only did he miss a cue, he looked lost for a few seconds. And I think it was Owen that pulled him through it. Like, okay, spin around. Let's do this again. And made it almost seem seamless. But if you watch wrestling for a long time, you're going to catch those every once in a while where someone who might be new might not catch it right away. Now, with that being said, this was a vehicle to get Vader over. This was a thing to say, well, if he could take out Yokozuna and Ahmed Johnson, Ahmed Johnson's huge.
I mean, WWF isn't going to care about it, but you want to get Vader over. You show that match with Inoki.
Yes.
What was it? 3 or 4 minutes of him just brutalized. And the fact you go back and look at Leslie. No, I forget his last name now. I'm going to forget Vader. When he first got to Japan and did that to Inoki and just devastated him, he looked great. I mean, he was not even just massive, but in great shape. I mean, right off his, I guess, coming off football career and everything. But he was another guy that I just don't think ever got his real true deserves in WWE, WWF.
Not at all.
No, he was much better in WCW. He was much better in Japan.
Oh, yes. And, the Vader gimmick almost went to Jim Hellwig.
Yeah. Oh, God. Jesus, that would have...
Dude, you want to talk about, like, I'm going to make this awesome lasagna. I'm just going to set it out in the curb and see if the ants want it today. That's what you would have done with that. And by the way, it's Leon White. That's
White.
what Vader was.
Thank you.
Leon White.
I said, you know what? I just realized I say that. It was a Boy Meets World episode. So he was on a couple of Boy Meets World episodes, and I think that was Feeney's line was he was trying to intimidate Mr. Feeney, and Mr. Feeney knew his real name was Leslie. Yeah. So that's where my brain was coming from on that one.
Okay. Let's confess right now. We're both closeted Boy Meets World fans.
I won't be. It'll be closeted. It was a fun show. Yeah.
I was closeted because I was older. So I was like, I don't know why I'm watching this, but there's nothing else on. And
it's TGIF, man.
Well, I had a friend the night that ECW debuted on TNN, Spike, whatever you want to call it. They chose to watch the final episode of Boy Meets World instead. And I was like, I'm at a loss for words here. But if you don't think I didn't catch that episode in reruns, 100%. That's all I got to say. All right, so moving forward.
Moving forward with a match that I don't even know where to start with. The Hollywood Backlot Brawl between Roddy Piper and Goldust. These kind of matches are not typically done very well by WWF. And a lot of that is true here, even though there are, I think, some iconic moments that people really remember and that get replayed and showed over and over again. But when you go back and watch, there's a whole thing with sometimes Vince just does these things and you're just like, where are you coming from? The shots mocking the O.J. Simpson chase scenes and everything. And they're just, what are we doing?
Once again, this is putting a hat on a hat, okay? Yeah. Because you're using double controversy. You're using footage from a homicide chase paired with, at the time, something very risque in Goldust being possibly transgendered. So
just gay or something. Even I think that was kind of
it was
effeminate and whatnot.
I don't know what the proper term is because I don't want to. Dust.
I don't think I got it when I was younger seeing that, but now you go back and watch it. And of course, Dustin is an incredible talent, and power to him for pulling that off in such a I don't think anybody would have thought a guy like Dustin could have taken what Vince gave him there, and he really ran with it.
Well,
And
six
ate
foot
about as
six,
most as he could.
260-pound stud from Texas is now as flamboyant and as funny as they come. And here is a Wrestle Magic fun fact. The reason we do shout-outs and recommendations at the end was based off of the Gold Dust gimmick, because I was talking to Rocky when we very first started the show, and I said, Gold Dust always does this thing where he does a quote from a movie. And he's like, okay. I said, well, I started noticing on all the old birth of the internet wrestling sites that people will be like, I always watch the movie that he quotes. He'll be like, you want the truth? What's under this suit? You can't handle the truth. Jack Nicholson. A Few Good Men. And so these people will start watching these movies because of him. So that's why I wanted to incorporate it into the show. And then when I bounced it off everybody else in the group, everybody loves the idea, but that's where it originally came from, was Goldust. So he influenced this actual wrestling channel. So thank you very much, Dustin Rhodes. Also, thank you to whoever helped create the show. But I also want to say that that backlog, the whole splicing the OJ truck chasing scene, the white Bronco, just too much. So, like I said, mixing perhaps a homosexuality gimmick with a homicide investigation. It was a hat on a hat. It was Sting under a Sting mask. It was just too much. You were trying way too hard. And then to end it with Piper stripping him down into his lingerie and giving a big fat sloppy kiss in the middle of the ring. It was too much. It was just too much. So,
and then the broken up in different sections and whatnot, that they come back from later on. But coming off of that match, we've got the first WrestleMania match of arguably one of the greatest that's ever even been involved in the WWF. Stone Cold Steve Austin with Ted DiBiase at the time still, defeating Savio Vega by a TKO, which you don't see that reference very often in WWF matches. 10 minutes and 5 seconds. Savio is a great talent. Again, not really utilized to his full potential in WWF, but everybody knows what became of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And you can't say much more than that, other than the match was fine and just really not WrestleMania worthy.
This is what I have to say about it. First of all, I did not appreciate Savio back then, but I didn't realize the role that he held in WWF is the fact that he was liaison between the WWF and the World Wrestling Council, which is owned by Carlito's dad, Carlos Colon. A lot of times, if you're rehabbing a wrestler and you want to get him TV ready, you'd either go to Memphis, but if they wanted you to do a big stadium show and be ready for a big crowd, they would ship you down to Puerto Rico and work there for Dutch. Like Dutch Mantel would book you, or Savio Vega would help you and acclimate you in, so that way you wouldn't get jumped, because those crowds down there, they would throw batteries at you, they'd throw full beer cans, they would throw everything to try to hurt you. So it was a place to earn your chops and to be kept off TV for rehab. So he was important also in developing talent down in Puerto Rico that you could later put on WWF TV, somebody like Carlito. There was a couple other people that came through, and that's basically what Savio Vega was doing.
Well,
and
unfortunately had the ignominy of being the underwhelming surprise entrant in a Royal Rumble, if I remember correctly. Everybody was expecting somebody much bigger, and then it ends up being Savio Vega, and it was a big wet fart of a moment.
Yeah, I think that the first part of him is that they limited him heavily to a brawler's style, and he didn't have a WWE build.
No.
If I could compare his build to anybody, it'd be Eddie Kingston, except Eddie Kingston has so much more mic charisma.
Yeah,
that it makes up for his build. But I've always been a big fan of every build, not just bodybuilders, because you couldn't have the threat of this giant King Kong Bundy squashing Hogan without him being this giant, big, large man. Vader, Bigelow, people like that, Jerry Blackwell. Even though they're incredibly athletic versions of that, you have to have different body shapes and different body types. You look back at it, the best shape that Jake Roberts was in, you don't look at him and say, That's a physique guy.
Yeah.
But the story he could tell and everything he could do in the ring was important. And so that's what Savio Vega was really missing in this. And I think ultimately that's what really hurt his career. But I know that he worked for them behind the scenes for a long time. And the word is, he was a legitimate tough guy. He could really smack you around if you wanted to smack you around a bit.
I mean, from what I hear about those old, Puerto Rico stuff, because I really don't. That's one area that I very much have not. I mean, I know their reputation as the island of hardcore and everything, but those Puerto Rican territories and whatnot were not easy places to work and were very tough crowds, very hardcore crowds in a lot of ways. And, not to mention just some of the other things, because who knows exactly what was going on with the Colon brothers and all of that. Brody, elephant in the room there and everything. So, it's definitely a blind side. I don't really know much about all of that, but I've read and I've, heard and seen enough from other people talking about how difficult that was to really, and because of that, I'm sure that really, put a lot under some of these guys by coming up through those ranks.
Absolutely, I agree. And it's like we said, more charisma, changing up his style a little bit. And I hate to say his physique worked against him with my prior statement, but it did. It really did, at least in Vince's eyes. And so, but here's to you, Savio, because you helped out. You served as a talent liaison. You got a lot of people over, and you helped reestablish other people's careers. So thank you.
All right. After that, a future star to one other future star whom I don't think anybody really thought much of this guy coming up. Maybe not at this time, in a couple of years for sure, but Ultimate Warrior in a totally nothing squash match, defeating Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I think this was his first wrestler. So you had back-to-back matches, Stone Cold, Triple H making their WrestleMania debut. It's pretty impressive, really.
It's a great
with hindsight.
It's a great back-to-back situation of the future of the company, at least for the next, at this point, I mean, I'd almost say 5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years. I mean, Stone Cold was really kind of out of there, after, 2001, 2, 3, they really didn't stretch out much other than past that. And then Triple H really kind of took a lot of that over. So, there's The Rock obviously in there too, for sure. But 2 out of 3 of those guys.
I think it was a brutal WrestleMania debut for Triple H. I mean, it's a sad, like, for a guy that they loved so much.
And then nothing really happened with Ultimate Warrior after that anyway, so it just seems like a waste.
What are you talking about? He formed Destrucity.
No. True.
That's another one, folks. You got to look that up. Destrucity, whatever it was. It was a really bad match. It was sloppy. It was fast. It wasn't sloppy as much as it was a squash match over the future of the company. The guy that took the reins. Well,
what ended up being sloppy was the next match, Undertaker defeating Diesel. Diesel was quite sloppy in this one. Undertaker, maybe not his best work either, but still kind of really trying to get his feet under him, I think, at this point in the WrestleMania scheme of things. Undertaker and Diesel, 16 minutes. Meh. I did not love it.
It went on about 10 minutes too long. And I loved at the end of the match how Taker tombstones him, that's it, pins him. And then Diesel sits in the middle of the ring acting like he's all disappointed and like...
He's coming off. He's still like falling from. You ever seen that picture of the old Mr. Big album from back in the day? Lean Into It, I think was the name of the record.
Oh my gosh!
It's that famous picture of the train that had hanging outside of the station out onto the street and whatnot. And I'm like, that's the picture of this diesel engine right here. Is this train just blum?
He was just like so deflated. He would like the wind was sucked out of the room, but the crowd went mild. Yeah. I'm gonna say like it. I don't want to say it killed the crowd, but it just like At this
I
point,
don't know if the crowd was really up at all at this point, and that's going to bring us to the main event here in a second. But again, this is a very much a one. I mean, not even the fact that you get a one match card, really. You've got a couple of really pretty matches, a 1.5 minute match, a pretty lackadaisical tag team match, 6-man match, and the other one is everybody in the arena is watching on video,
yeah.
until the very end, if I remember right, Piper and Goldust returning. But it was a pretty meh WrestleMania. You had a couple of, again, this is a weird period for WrestleMania. There's some weird stuff going on at this time. But that being said, that does lead into our one match of this particular WrestleMania. I'm interested to see how you feel about this, to be honest with you. Shawn Michaels, cornered by Jose Lothario, defeating Bret Hart in a 60-minute Iron Man match that went to one fall. Shawn Michaels with this amazing entrance, coming down from the rafters. Look at him go! Wow!
Yeah.
And Bret Hart just oozing Bret Hartness, the ultimate sort of, good guy, great wrestler thing. There was a lot of great going on around this match. There was a lot of great moments in the match. It overall is a great WrestleMania match. I would say that. But at the end of the day, and, these are two of the best talents that WWF and wrestling in general have ever had. 60-minute matches are such a tough ask in a lot of ways for the talent to be good enough to carry 60 minutes of the crowd themselves physically and all that. And a lot of it, I think, is probably comes down to mentally, knowing when to have lulls and highs and bring the crowd back up and all that. And at the end of the day, this is probably one of the best, 60-minute matches, at least on a high profile WWF, WCW, or something like that AEW that's been done. But even at this time, there was still things about it that were, I think, that make the match remembered better than what it actually was when you go back and watch it. It's a little on the disappointing side when you go back nowadays and watch it. That's how I think. I'm interested to see what you thought of it.
Well, the story was there with the rivalry. Of course, you have Stu, you've got Jose Lothario. You had a lot of tension built up. But one fall, like you said, they could have done better than that. Now, if you don't do one fall, everybody expects 3. I would take 4 falls, 2 to the winner, or 3 to the winner, 1 to the loser. However, I think that's too much to beat Bret up. And I think that, first of all, I didn't need to see Shawn on the disco globe going down. And
I love that. I thought that was, if anybody's going to get an entrance like that, it's Shawn Michaels.
Or Stevie Richards. But no, I digress. But Disco Inferno, hello. We're missing this here. It writes itself. But, excuse me. Now, what I'm going to say here is that
I was kind of long-winded in my thing, so you don't have to be so much. I did what it did as a wrestling match in my justification of it.
I would have capped it at a half hour, not made it the Iron Man match, and just said best of 3 falls, or who can score the most falls in 30 minutes. Yeah. It wouldn't have. Well, the crowd was split as far as who they were happy for and who they were against, especially going up into it. And Shawn's cutting all these promos as the heel, but he's acting like a babyface, and Bret's just acting all disgruntled and everything. You kind of already knew the writing was on the wall. It's not a bad match, but then again, 60 minutes for anybody for one match is just too much to digest. So I do agree with you there, and I think just they could have benefited from 1 or 2 more falls.
Yeah. It's not, you're right. I don't think it's a bad match, but yeah, it just isn't, what it is remembered to have been, I think.
Agreed. So then that would cap off WrestleMania 12. Is that correct, sir?
That would.
Okay. Well, I guess it's about that time then to give recommendations and give our, I guess, just our recommendations and our sign-offs. So, Jimmy, hit it.
Wrestle Magic.
All right. So everybody knows that you can reach me at 144captain on X. Feel free to critique the shows, tell me what you think, or if you have ideas or suggestions, please let me know. Aside from that, I did some shout outs in the beginning of the show, obviously. And, I just want to tell everybody who is part of Wrestle Magic, let's just keep banging them out. We've got a lot of surprises coming up, a lot of really cool stuff, some really cool interviews. Everybody has their irons in the fire, and we're working really, really hard. And Sean and I are going to continue our editorials and do our things. My movie recommendation of the day, I have two of them. One is a neo-noir, semi-comical film called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And if you're not familiar, I know you're probably familiar, Sean. It has Robert Downey Jr. before he was Iron Man, and it's kind of a fun, not necessarily whodunit thriller, but it's just fun. It's a fun movie. It's a neo-noir, and it has a good comedy aspect of it. I also want to shout out the movie Seven, because I just started rewatching it again, and the more I rewatch it, the more I think that John Doe was heavily involved with Morgan Freeman. There's parts of the movie that people don't really pay attention to. The movie's called Seven. Morgan Freeman's character is retiring in 7 days. When he first meets Brad Pitt, who he doesn't even know is going to be his partner, he says, "Oh, you have to deal with me for the next 7 days." He's the one to find the first pieces of evidence, start putting everything into motion. He was the only person who really knew before John Doe that Brad Pitt's wife was pregnant. So what if he was the one who motivated John Doe to get Brad Pitt out of the way?
Yeah.
It's something that you can actually put in the back of your head and rewatch the movie and say, okay, that kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. So something I just want you folks to maybe digest a little bit. And the last part is a fun horror movie podcast called Land of the Creeps. I'd really enjoy Greg Mortis and his whole team and their reviews of everything from really campy, goofy sci-fi horror movies to movies that you put on the iceberg of do not ever watch this. So it's really cool. I've actually emailed the show a couple times. They read my emails, and I've done a voice in for the show on the phone before. It's really cool. So I highly recommend it. Excuse me, folks. Sometimes I stutter. As far as you go, Sean, would you like to do any recommendations or a sign off?
I've got one recommendation. Go see Backrooms without any expectations. It's really good.
That's awesome. And as always, we have Jimmy Street working on our production. Thank you very much, Jimmy, for everything. And remember, folks, that the beginning of depression is the death of creativity. Until next time.
Wrestle Magic.